Hi everybody, hi VC. This is my contest entry to James Griffiths' 100 subs contest. James asked us to talk about records or albums that remind us of some of our friends. I'm going to talk about 3 friends that I knew at school, in sixth form and in college, and the reason why I've chosen those 3 is because we kind of interacted in bands and played music together as well around about that time. So I'm going to start off with my friend Ollie. The Mission.
I still believe in God, but God no longer believes in me.
Down a bit. So Ollie was a friend that I knew in the 80s. He moved from Hereford, I believe, sort of a very rural place in the UK, in England. He moved from there to my part of Essex where I live, and it's quite a contrast, I think. And he was at a very tender age, right in the sort of the pre-pubescent sort of boyhood, I suppose, when he arrived, and it would have been quite a stark contrast for him to have changed environments like that. He had very sort of rural, sort of farming type a family. His father was a Yorkshireman, spoke a very broad Yorkshire accent, still used things like these and thous and thys in his the way he spoke. And it was quite hard, I think, for Ollie to come and just sort of relocate and fit in like that. That was quite difficult. And when he arrived, he was very much a big fan of Depeche Mode, and he remained a fan of Depeche Mode until he eventually died in 1996. But in the midway, he kind of sought solace, I guess, in music in a big way, and was very interested in the sort of more darker elements of music, which is eventually he became a goth. And he liked Jim Morrison because of the darkness there in the Doors. He identified with Syd Barrett. He introduced me to Pink Floyd. I can remember sitting on a bus going to college once, and he lent me his Walkman and listened to The Scarecrow, Bike. And whenever I hear those songs, I think of Ollie straight away. But particularly this one. This is pretty amazing in the way that when I put it on, it takes me back to his bedroom, I suppose. We'd sit around listening to music. He would always have on something a bit sullen, a bit dark and gloomy. So that was Ollie. So Ollie played in a band called Sack. They were a goth band, and at the end of the college course that we did together, we had a big concert, a concert of 4 of the bands that were in our particular course, and I'll play some of that tape in a little while. Okay, so my next friend is going to be Anton, I talked about. This is Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden. So Anton was really friends with Ollie, and I guess by default me. We hung about in school together. We studied art, all of us, so we hung around in the art rooms. Went on to do A-level art in sixth form, and then went on to college together afterwards. Anton, this was pretty much Anton. I remember Anton, I'll turn it down a bit. He wasn't into the goth thing or anything like that. He certainly wasn't really into the mainstream pop music, but he liked fairly good quality music, I suppose. I'll always remember him when I played Sting's Dream of the Blue Turtles. He made a copy of that for me once on cassette around about Christmas time. So whenever I hear that Dream of the Blue Turtles, for me it's a Christmas album. Even to this day, it's a Christmassy sort of record. And he made a copy of this for me as well on a C90 back to back with Lou Reed's Magic and Loss. So Anton was very much a kind of a cool customer. He was probably, a lot more in tune with Ollie. Him and Ollie had a definite sort of bond there. And I know that Anton played a large role in Ollie's funeral at the end when Ollie died. I couldn't be there because I lived abroad already by then, but I think it was quite a sensitive time. Whenever I listen to this brings Anton to mind, because it is very much his personality, his character, I think, in the music that I hear. Anton played guitar, and after I returned to live in Essex after studying, he and I and Ollie would meet in a barn together on Sundays and just jam, play music. I think I got some recordings of that I can play in a little while. The next friend I'm going to talk about is Luke. This is ABC, Beauty Stab. Down a bit. So Luke was, I was really glad to meet Luke when I did. He didn't go to school with me and Ollie and Anton. we met him when we went to college. And what was really good about Luke was that he and I were very much aligned musically. Because I'd always liked David Bowie, and David Bowie was, Luke's big hero. And so we had an instant connection there. And fortunately for me, Luke was also a really big fan of Duran Duran. And I can remember at school that was always a bit of a dull point, because everybody was into The Cure, The Smiths, the alternative you've seen at the time, and it wasn't quite so popular to be into Duran Duran, but I didn't care. And when I met Luke, it was kind of all of a sudden really cool to like Duran Duran, because not only did he like Bowie as well, but he also sang in a band. So we thought that was pretty amazing. And yeah, what can I say about Luke? He kind of gave me a lift, I suppose. I quite liked him. I liked his environment. I can remember he brought this to my attention, and I always think of him when I listen to this. I remember hearing him talk about it to somebody else. He was talking about how it's really raucous and sort of hard. I remember the phrase he used. He said it's bordering on being heavy metal. Now, it's not. But at the time, it intrigued me, because heavy metal was something that I didn't know anything about. And I spoke to him about it afterwards, and he gave me a copy of it on cassette. I remember sitting on the bus listening to it and thinking, wow, it's really, it's really powerful. Since then, I've kind of grown up and gone through a whole heavy metal phase, and I listen to this and think, what was I thinking about? It's not heavy metal at all. But in those days, when I was used to listening to anything but heavy metal, I had nothing to compare it to. But this is ABC's second album, called Beauty Stat. It was a commercial flop, and it's such a shame, because it's a really, really good record. It's a little bit loud though. It was a commercial flop because it didn't follow the style of their debut album. And the debut album is really good. It won lots of awards for its production and everything like that. It really is a very good album. But I like this one better because it takes a risk, I suppose. And they didn't want to follow up and do, the first album again for a second time. And so it was panned by the critics at the time. But it is a really good record, and I recommend anyone give it a try. I always think that it would go really well back to back on a C90 with David Bowie's Ashes to Ashes. It's got a similar kind of loud production. And I think they kind of would match each other very well, those two albums. So I think of Luke when I play this, and now I'm going to play you some music that me and Luke did at a concert. Okay, James, I hope that satisfies your question that you had on your contest. Congratulations for the 100 subs. You're doing a great job in a VC. And okay, thanks very much. Check out my next video. Bye.